This is A Story of Sorts, the podcast mostly about bookish stuff. Hello everyone, Karina here again. On this third episode, I talk with Esmée de Heer. Esmée is a writer and the host of Bored to Death Book Club. I have asked Esmée about her love for books, her writing, and how to start and manage a book club, both in person and online. Have a listen. I don't know, I never know how to start this. Esmée, thank you for coming to the podcast. Esmée is the host of Bored to Death Book Club, and Bored to Death Book Club was actually the first book club I've been a part of. And although we never really talked about how a book club works, it helped me a lot in going forward to create other book clubs with friends and with Boss and Young. So I decided to invite you to so that you can also explain to people if they want to start a book club, how they can do that. Before we get into that, I'd like to ask you some personal questions so people can get to know you.
Yes.
So, you're a writer. What do you write?
Yeah. I write mostly genre fiction. I am a big fan of fantasy, and lately I've been discovering horror as well, so it's been really fun to experiment with those things. I've been writing a bunch of short stories the past year, and I am still re-editing a novel, because that takes forever. But yeah, mostly genre fiction now, yeah.
And are you also writing horror, or do you write...
I am starting to experiment with horror. I think that the novel I'm working on might be a little bit more towards the horror than the fantasy side. I've always liked fantasy, but then more like the darker side of fantasy, so not, knights, elves, going on adventures, but more... You go through a portal, you're in a different world, and things are not as they should be, or things are probably scarier, not always nice and Narnia-like. So it's more that side. So it's like dark fantasy kind of thing. Yeah.
Urban fantasy as well.
Yeah. Urban fantasy, dark fantasy. It's just too many genres, all kind of the same thing. Yeah,
because it's funny because people usually ask, do you like science fiction and fantasy? And my first instinct, I don't know about you, but is to say no. Because when people talk science fiction, it's very technological and scientific, and I don't like that. But then you have Kindred.
Yeah.
And it's great. And then fantasy, you have like stories with ghosts and so on, and it's really great. But again, like the elves, I also don't...
No, I'm not a fan of really high fantasy. I think it's really impressive always when people can create entire worlds, but I like more the weirder stuff, like Jeff Vandermeer, Annihilation, just kind of the looking into the strangeness of fantasy instead of really creating entire worlds. Yeah.
And do you remember when you started reading?
I started reading at a really young age. My family always had books. We had always a house filled with books, and my dad always took me and my two sisters to the library every Saturday. So I think we all just started reading as soon as we could. We learned to read, and when we always just had books, and we liked reading. We spent our time reading. So that was really just, I think, as early as we could. Yeah.
So you don't have like this idea of when you became a reader, because you've always
I was thinking about it, and I was like, I really don't remember the moment where it started. I remember that as soon as we learned how to read, I was already reading, and we were just continuously reading. Yeah.
And did you have a favorite book as a child or as a teenager, or even both?
I had not maybe a favorite book, but a favorite author or a favorite group of authors. And I think for Dutch kids or Dutch people my age growing up, we all had the same author, and it was Paul van Loon. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. Yeah. He was just the coolest author, and I loved all his books and all the books made in that Griezelgenootschap, which was just kind of the spooky horror thing again, which I grew up with. I loved those books. I was a really big fan of them. And then after, of course, Harry Potter, because that was also for everybody. So those were the big things, yeah.
It's curious because I saw someone I follow on Instagram, also sharing a picture that they took with him.
Yeah.
And even though he's like a children's author, she still, was a big fan of him.
Yeah.
Because
he was just such a big influence, I think, on many... writers being interested in fantasy, because there was not a lot of scary stuff out there for kids, but you wanted to get scared anyways, because that was a really fun thing to get into. And you read about vampires and werewolves and all kinds of weird stuff, and just we all thought he maybe was a vampire, so it was the coolest thing because he always wore sunglasses inside and he just pretended to maybe be a vampire. So he just had a whole thing going on that I see how even if I would meet him now, I would also be a little starstruck still. Yeah, definitely.
And did you really remember, like, maybe at school, I think everybody, independent of the country where they're in, has like the kippenvel. How do you say that?
Oh yeah, goosebumps.
Goosebumps.
Yeah. I read those a little bit as well. But Errol Stein had a different series, and it was called in Dutch De Laatste Klas, which was just a really gory horror story about a class where everybody was constantly dying in a really weird way. It was not for children, I think, although it was marketed to children, but that was more my thing. So goosebumps are scary.
It was more serious then, and not as nice as...
Yeah, and I think that Goosebumps was sometimes a little too scary, because they had like scary things with dolls that came alive, and that was just a big no-no for me. So I skipped those, and I went to, at least these are murders, and I can understand that a little better than things that are alive that shouldn't be.
Less likely to happen as well. That someone's gonna murder than your doll.
Yeah, yes, definitely.
To the book club. How long has Bored to Death book club been going on?
We've been going for 7 years.
7 years now.
7 years, yeah. September, I think it was 7 years. So it's been quite a while already, yeah.
It's a long time.
Yeah.
No idea. And you started it with your sister, Charlotte. Charlotte, right?
Yeah.
And what made you want to start the club, and who came up with the idea, and how did you make it happen?
Yeah, it was. We were both done with school around the same time. I think I was done a little bit before she was. It was 2013. I was looking for a job in the cultural section, which was impossible at that time. So we were like, this is impossible. We both like to read a lot. We were reading a lot more, and we were kind of looking for something fun to do in the city in Rotterdam, and they had nothing. There was like maybe 1 or 2 events that were literary events.
No book clubs?
No book clubs.
Oh, wow.
Nothing yet. Maybe like some of the bookshops had book clubs, but they were really exclusive and you couldn't just join. So it was really literature in Rotterdam was really a sort of a highfalutin. We have to be really, really elitist about it.
Okay, but even in 2013.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and it changed really quickly after that, so that was really nice. But we were so sick of that, and we went to London on vacation, because we always go there for books. So like book vacation, we go to London, and we went to a bar, and they had an evening called Book Club. And a bunch of authors were there, and they just read from their books, and it was in this weird basement. It was the coolest thing that we were at. And we were like, this is really cool. We should do something with this. And we were also just constantly like, oh, you should read this book, you should read that book. And then we were not reading the same books, but we did want to talk about it. And we had no one else to talk about it. So we're like, okay, we're just going to start a book club. We know a bunch of people who probably want to join, and we're just going to see how it goes.
Okay, yeah. And you then just talked with friends and stuff, and...
Well, we thought we were going to just start with friends, and we made like a pretty big deal out of it with like a whole party at Mon Amour. It was their first year, and it was also our first year, so we sort of did a joint program together where we did some literary events during the day, and they did their movies at the night. And
that's the cinema.
The cinema.
Oh, sorry, I don't know the...
Yeah, Mon Amour is a cinema event. They show movies. They're an outdoor cinema event. And they started at the same year we did. And they just did a really cool thing where at night you can just sit outside, and that was at the Hofbogen back then still, on the roof of an old metro station, and you can just watch movies. It was really fun.
So cool.
Yeah. So that's where we started. And soon, instead of maybe the 6 people we thought, we had over 25 people for our first book club. Yeah.
How was it? Did you have to separate into groups, or kind of just choose only the 15 first, or something like that?
We had to actually cancel some people, because there were more people who still wanted to join, and we were like, okay, we have to...
cancelling people in 2013 already?
No, so we really have to be like, okay, 25 people is the maximum we're going to do. And back then, we still split up in a group for Dutch and a group for English.
Okay.
So my sister, Charlotte, she did the group in English, in Dutch, and I did the group in English, because we had some people who found it a little difficult to do the book club in English. But the idea to read English books was already there from the start.
Because now you always read in English, unless there's also the option to read the same book in Dutch, right? The book club is more international now. It's more like geared towards English books. But so it started with both.
Yeah, we did read the same book, so we always read the same book, and the book was always in English, but we discussed it in 2 languages. And we really went from doing the 2 separate groups to just one group in English just gotta deal with it. It's good for you to learn a different language.
So it was the discussion and not so much the book. The books were the same.
Yeah, the books were the same.
That's a really cool idea, though. To be able to like when there was at Vogelhuis, the bird cottage. It was so cool that some people could read it in Dutch as well. Yeah, and it was nice. It was a really nice book, actually. Yeah. It was good to be able to see that I could read something in Dutch. So I'm really grateful for that, because now I want to read all our other books as well.
They're really nice. Yes.
That's cool. And why did you choose? No, another question before that. Did you do it online already? Like, how did you dealt with how many people were coming and passing on the information, etc.?
We did everything just with email, so it was a little bit of a
newsletter, or
no newsletter. Just actually every single email I answered, so it was a lot of work still. Things have gotten a little easier right now, but it was just you had to email us, and if you wanted to join, I sent you the information on the book club, and we even back then did that. We ordered all the books for you, and you could buy them from us. We stopped doing that pretty quickly because that became a big hassle with people not actually showing up and not getting the books.
You get the book there, and nobody to buy them.
Yeah.
Wow. Because I'm kind of trying to think about how to do this without being online. How do people know? Yeah, where to show up, when to show up, who's going to show up. It can't be because now with the newsletters you just send to everyone at the same time.
Yeah, the newsletters are really a good help. But we mostly started with Facebook, and Facebook is just really easy. You just make an event and you just say it is here at this time. Just show up.
And people would.
Yeah, fortunately they did. Yes.
Where did you meet up back then?
We used to meet up. We started Lof der Zoetheid.
At where?
It's at Rotterdam Noord. It's the Zwaanshals. It's a really, really nice shop that makes a lot of cool baked goods, and they do a really nice high tea. And then it's called Lof der Zoetheid. It's just a really nice place. We started out there in the evenings. They were closed always in the evening, so they opened for us specifically. Ooh. So we had the luxurious position of having a complete restaurant or small restaurant for ourselves. And we also got free snacks, so it was the best. It couldn't last forever, but it was great.
Because I thought that maybe the shop had opened in the sense, maybe we'll sell some things while it's
drinks.
Open in the
drinks. We are still a book club with a lot of drinking sometimes. So we, especially back then, still there was a lot of beer going on.
Okay, wow, that's cool. It kind of helps also because with the Cap San Maria, which was where we were meeting, it was the only problem was that it was a bit noisy because we were so many as well.
Yeah.
And even upstairs it was a bit noisy, but it was a really nice place. I thought it was. Yeah. We had like that little room for the book club, and it was cool. But yeah, it's
too noisy. Yeah, definitely.
But then the writer's guide opened up their space as well for the.
For the Shut Up and Write. Yeah.
It was just. But did we ever? We never met up there for the book club. I think, right?
No, not yet. I had been in talks with Susanna about it to see what we could do, but then Corona
happened,
and then nothing, unfortunately.
Oh, and why did you decide to call it Bored to Death Book Club? Such a cool name. And the logo as well. I don't know who came up with the logo. You can answer that as well. But it's so cool.
It was kind of difficult. We were having such a difficulty with naming it. And at that time there was a TV show called Bored to Death, which is about a writer who can't publish his book, or he's like kind of stuck with writing. So he becomes a detective. It's a really funny show, and it's kind of dumb, but my sister and I both really, really liked it, so we were like, we're just gonna steal that name. The creator of the show knows it, so he doesn't mind. Yeah, we didn't ask him for permission, which maybe we should have, but we did tweet with him later on because we read one of his books for the book club as well, because we thought that would be a really fun thing to do.
Which one was that? Do you remember?
I can't remember the title. It's okay. No. It's just the author is Jonathan Ames. Yeah. And it is one of his books. I don't remember the name.
We'll search it out after, and I'll leave it on the notes.
Thanks. Yeah. So that's how we got the name. And the logo is created by Robin Stam, who is a friend of my sister, who is a graphic designer. So he makes really cool art, and he also made our logo.
Yeah, because you also have the book marked and stuff.
Yeah. He made everything. Cool. So we're always very grateful for him to help us with all our cool design and logos. Yeah.
Super nice. And is there a genre that works better in the book club, like fiction, non-fiction, or any other genre within that?
We haven't done non-fiction yet. So that is still a thing that I'm not sure we could do that. That is kind of difficult. But I think what works best is really just really literary, but also kind of easy to read novels.
More contemporary as well.
Yeah.
Not very, very literary.
Yeah. And I think classics are a great thing to do because they always attract a lot of people. Classics are always those book clubs are always full.
People recognize them.
And they're like, oh, I should really read that. Or this gives me a good incentive to read these books. But I think that a lot of contemporary novels that are just maybe they have a cool idea or maybe they have some cultural criticism, those usually get the best discussions.
Because I kind of feel, I have this thing not against classics, it's just, for me, it's harder to read.
Yeah.
I also have the feeling that when you get more into literature, I think it's just because it also takes longer. Because you have a month to read, more or less, right?
Yeah.
You get to know the book and you have a month until you end it. And I think everybody wants to finish the book before going to the session, the book club. So I think that pressure also may not help very much. So when it's easier to read, you can just read any.
Definitely. Definitely choose books that are short. Not over 400 pages.
No Hilary Mantel.
No. And if we do, we always have 2 months for it. Once we did, we read Charles Dickens. We read A Tale of Two Cities.
Yeah.
We had 2 months to read it. I think maybe 5 people showed up that had actually read it, and 2 people finished it. It was the worst. It was just that was not a good book for the book club.
I can recognize that. That would be especially because then there's the opposite. If you have a long time to read a book, you're I have time.
Yes.
And then it's oh no, I have a week actually now.
I know. I don't do it so much anymore. When I used to do it always 2 weeks before the book club, I did a sort of a reminder on any of my social medias to be hey guys, book club. Make sure you're going to read it. Make sure you're going to be on time. It's not been necessary that much anymore lately, but I used to really do that because I noticed people just start reading maybe a couple days before and they were oh, I haven't finished it again. So the reminder definitely helped, yeah.
And do you feel that stops people a lot from coming to the book club, not finishing them? Or
No, not really actually. I think a lot of people still, if they don't mind spoilers, and most people are kind of fine with that now, I noticed, they just show up anyways. They just think it's fun to, especially when we did the book club still at Caps Maria. It was just also a nice time to hang out and to talk about other stuff, so people didn't mind as much.
Just go out and let others talk.
Yeah, exactly.
And do you feel a lot of difference between the book club now and when you started it, besides the Dutch and English groups and stuff?
I think you can tell that the discussions become sometimes a little bit more based on themes. We have a bunch of people at the book club who have been there from almost the start. And you can really tell that those people kind of progress in how we talk about books. So I noticed for myself as well that I think about the literature differently than I did at the start. And it really helps with thinking of what questions to ask and how to talk about it to get an actual good discussion. So that is actually really nice. I think that helps, yeah.
And it has to do as well with social justice, with people being more aware of the themes
Definitely.
of the books, rather than just reading the book for the book.
Yeah. I think that you really see a much more political discussion happening at every book club, and not always, it's not angry, just that people are more aware of reading books, especially books that are written a couple of years ago, that you're kind of this feels a little weird, or that wouldn't really work anymore right now, and you just look at it in a very different way. So I think that helped with a different discussion. Yeah.
Okay. And now, what do you, this is maybe a question that's a bit hard to reply, but what do you enjoy the most, and what do you enjoy less, or that it's more challenging to deal with?
I think what I like the most is, my favorite thing about the book club is when I read a book and I'm kind of I don't really have that many ideas about it. And then when we talk about it with each other, I'm something oh man, I appreciate this book a lot more now. I really like that talking about a book helps me remember it a lot better. And also just it really gives me different appreciation for what I'm reading. So I really like hearing different people and their ideas about the same book and then the discussion. That's just really, really valuable, instead of just what happens a lot. You read a book, you put it away, and you never think about it again. So that's really my favorite thing. My least favorite thing is kind of all the organizing sometimes around the book club, especially people saying they're going to show up and then not showing up, and then it's always a gamble, but sometimes you're just left with maybe 2 or 3 people while you had 14 people saying I'm going to show up. So those things are just not always nice, but that's part of organizing anything.
Because you also try, like, but when there's a waiting list, you also try to, on the day, say, oh, there's an opening now.
Exactly.
But if people don't tell you anything until you're there,
yeah,
that's more challenging too.
Yeah, it's frustrating when people just really don't show up or you just don't hear anything from them anymore. And I'm like, it's fine that you don't want to show up. Like, I don't mind that. It's just annoying if you do expect other people. And I have had one book club where we were just really with 3 people, which was a little sad. Then you're like, okay, well, this is uncomfortable. Luckily, it was someone I knew really well, so it wasn't so bad. But it was me, my sister, and then one of the book clubbers. And if that's someone who's new, who's never been there before, that's a really awkward position. So it doesn't happen often, but those are kind of annoying things.
And now that you talked about questions, do you usually prepare questions for the book clubs? Because like most of the other book clubs that I'm part of now, we don't do questions per se. Yeah. People just kind of talk. So what do you do?
I always prepare it a little bit. I make sure that I read about it, that I do think of some questions to ask, and depending on how the conversation goes, I ask them or I don't. If it's just a really nice flowing conversation and I don't really need to interfere, then it's fine. Then
it's basic fillers. Like if it's too quiet.
Yeah, if you notice people are not saying a lot or they're just kind of like unsure what to talk about, then I'll throw in a question and I'll be like, well, what do you guys think about this? That's usually how I prepare. They're really for backup, not so much to really tick off the questions.
Because I've seen, like, at the end of books especially, like, questions for the book club. Yeah. And it's like a whole list. Yeah. And I kind of wonder how it works when I don't know if you've ever been in a book club where they actually really do that, where they go through the questions with people.
No, I've never done that.
No, because I always ask myself about it, like, do people really go through the whole list of questions and they lead a book club like that? Because it kind of feels, maybe it works better, I don't know, but it kind of feels like it's stopping people a little bit from just saying what they think without any influence, because the questions are going to influence your replies and make you think about other things.
Yeah, I think the nice thing of having a book club is also just hearing people talk and having them talk about the thing they want to talk about. And as a host, you do sometimes need to steer the conversation a specific way, especially if someone is talking for a long time or no one's responding to it.
Someone not stopping enough.
Yeah. Or someone's like really trying to get in but doesn't really know how to start talking. But I really like to not steer it too much, just to see where it goes, because, you know, if people want to talk about the thing they want to talk about, not specifically about my ideas. And I really don't see it as the book club where I want to ask you questions. It's more the book club where we all get to talk about the thing and we find interesting. Yeah.
That's nice. You also have Shut Up and Write, which for those who do not know it, is basically people come together to shut up and write. It's just so obvious, simple, but so nice. It's a great name as well. Same question with the book club, how did you come up with it, and why did you decide to do it?
When we started our book club, we were a little bit more ambitious than what we are doing now. We had the idea of doing many events and many things, and we did definitely some more events in the past years. So we did a lot. Shut Up and Write was one of the first things we came up with, and it is an event from New York, where in New York, a lot of people already did this. They were just like, oh, we're just going to write together. And then I found someone in Amsterdam who did the same thing. So I went to meet that person, and I joined Shut Up and Write in Amsterdam for once. And I talked to him. I was like, I want to do it in Rotterdam as well. He's like, fine, just mention me and I'm happy with it. So I kind of stole the idea.
No, but it's not really, because they stole it from New York.
Exactly. So it's just,
nobody knows that.
It started somewhere and now we're all doing it. And it's really nice because in Rotterdam there's more people doing the same thing. On Meetup you can find more Shut Up and Write sessions.
I found a few.
Which is really, they've never talked to me yet, so I don't know who they are, but I think it's really fun and it's happening a lot. And you saw it pop up everywhere in the Netherlands after that as well. So it was really fun.
Yeah, I have the app. I mean, now I deleted it because the corona was just taking space on my phone, but I had the app, and sometimes I see that I was like, what? This was not the date.
This is not the right Shut Up and Write.
This is not the right. What were they talking about? And then I see the whole story, like, oh, okay, it's something. It's really
someone else,
different. But okay, so you decided, but was it also for yourself, because you knew you wanted to do this, and then did you know other people were interested in the same, in writing? together?
I had some people, like my friends were writers also, so that was easy, and I often got them to just join, and then we were writing. Same thing, sometimes it happened that maybe 1 or 2 people showed up to the Shut Up and Write, so it's always difficult with that one. But I know a lot of people show up who I've never met before, and sometimes they come for a cycle and then they're there for a couple of weeks. Then I never see them again. Sometimes people come for 1 day and then I never see them again. But it has always been an event that people seem to really appreciate. So I've been doing it almost from the start. I stopped for a little while.
So how long as well?
Also, we started like immediately, so 7 years. I think we stopped doing it for a year, and now with Corona, I've really stopped doing it because online I find it a little bit more difficult. But I hope we can get back to it soon again. Yeah.
And did you feel like most people they really want just a place to get out of the house and to be able to be in a place where others, in a sense, are going to hold them accountable unless they leave?
Exactly that.
Talk.
Yeah.
And if they leave, it's a bit like, oh, okay, are you going already? So
yes.
Nobody's judging, of course.
Well,
but there's that pressure on top of you, right?
Yeah, but it's also really that communal feeling of, oh, everybody's working, and you notice people get really in the flow of just being around other people being creative, and it really works for yourself to just allow yourself to give that time to really just it is only 1 hour, and I think that's also why I like it so much. It is just 1 hour that I'm asking of you, or that you're asking of yourself, to really focus, and everything else around, like, do whatever. You don't have to write for 6 hours at a time, just 1 hour, and you can actually do a lot more work in that hour than you think you can.
I like the ones I've been in, they go so fast.
They're over, yeah.
They are like, it's things that, it's a funny thing, because now I have, like, I even put a desk at home to kind of try and do some writing, but I always have the feeling that after a while the desk stops working as well as it did in the beginning. And with those meetings, sometimes it took me months I have this idea that I want to develop, and it's been sitting for months without me touching it, because I don't get home from work and I sit on the computer. Most of the times I just don't do anything else on the computer. And then I would go to one of those meetings, and something that took me almost 3 months to write would be done in that hour. All I needed to do was the editing.
Yeah.
Because most of it, I was writing articles, which don't have to be too long. And it's just amazing how good it works. And then suddenly you were like, okay, the hour is finished. I'm like, what? The hour is finished?
Not yet.
It's just...
That's why it works really well. It's really just a focus, and especially if you've been putting off doing something, it's just perfect for that. Yeah.
I work on the deadline, so it's like I have 3 months to write 4 articles, and I read them all in the last week of the month. So that was really good, especially when, like, I had the deadline. Like, now I have to go.
Yes.
But how different was it to turn those meetings, both the book club and Shut Up and Write, into online events? And I mean, I guess in a sense it kind of speaks for itself that Bored to Death is still going. Yeah. And the Shut Up and Write has stopped. But
yeah, I think the Shut Up and Write, you notice that people don't... I noticed there was less interest in writing online. We work together with the Writer's Guide to the Galaxy, and they're doing the night shift, which is a longer session online, and that still worked out pretty well. But for the Shut Up and Write, I noticed people were kind of done with looking at their screens and being on there, and you're not really interacting, so you kind of lose that communal feeling that you have when you're just sitting together in silence and you hear all the typing.
I took part of one, and I also felt like at some point I was kind of cheating, because I was like, oh, I'm home, right?
Yeah.
So I was kind of like, oh, I'm not as concentrated, I'm not as focused on this as I was before. So yeah, I feel that when you go to the place to work, your mind kind of says, okay, this is the place. Like when you go to the library, I'm here is to work, and your mind kind of clicks, like it knows. Yes. But that's also why I kind of stopped joining in, because I thought, okay, it's really nice, but on one hand I also feel a bit like, oh, we are all online, but we're not really seeing each other. No. Because you're just with your computer writing. You can't, unless you have two computers, one to see the people and the other one to write. I mean, makes no...
No, so you really miss out on that feeling of being together and working. And I think that just after the first time, I already noticed, I was like, oh, this didn't really give me that same feeling. And the second time I had maybe 2 people who wanted to join, so I just I canceled it, because it was just too much. It was also just sick of looking at screens and done with being behind your computer, and more people had that same feeling. So we just really stopped that one for a while, and I'm going to start it back up again when it's possible to do it actually in person.
Because we are saying next year, but when we don't know for sure.
No, so I really hope it's going to be next year, but we have to wait and see. Yeah.
And with the book club.
Yeah, that was easier. We noticed that especially because it was always so loud at Capsa Maria, it was really nice to have an easier time to hear everybody. The connection problems are always there with online meetings, but that was pretty doable. So it's definitely a lot easier for the book club. I think you still miss out on some of the easier talking that you do when you're in person, but it's definitely a lot more doable. Yeah.
I mean, I've been joining when I can, and it's been fun. And in some ways, I think, especially in the beginning of the lockdown in March and April, it was so cool to just be able to be with a group of people again. And I'm saying this like from a place of someone who really enjoys being home and doesn't really miss too much being with other people. But it was just so nice to feel like you're part of something. Because when you are in the club, you do feel like you're part of something. And still be able to do it. That was like, wow, I'm part of something again. We didn't stop. I mean, it was really nice to do that. So I'm really glad that you're continuing to do it online. And what are you busy with at the moment? Are you writing something besides the book club? I mean,
I've been working on short stories and trying to get some of those published. So that's always scary. So that's been what I've been working on most, and I want to get back into editing my novel again. So mostly short stories at the moment. Yeah.
Anything you can tell us about that?
Well, I'm really.
I know you already talked a little bit about it.
Yeah, no, I can tell you. I've been working on this short story that I recently sent to a magazine, and they sent it off to a second round of editing. So it's like it's all difficult with magazines, but you have like a slush pile, and then it's leased onto a second round where someone else still looks at it. So I was very excited about that happening for me. And it's a story about it's kind of like invisible cities from Italo Calvino. He creates weird, strange worlds where he just describes worlds that exist in different places, weird places. It's a really interesting world building exercise. So I did something similar with that, but then about climbing, because I like climbing. I climb, so that is a combination of fantasy and climbing that I got through there.
Your hobby is like what you usually do. Like, do you want to talk more about that?
Of course.
Please.
Yeah, no, I do bouldering, so not actually climbing. Bouldering is climbing on a wall that's 5 meters high. Yep. So you don't have ropes, but you do have thick mats that you can fall onto. Yeah, I'm not good at it still. I've been doing it for a long time. I'm still pretty bad at it, but I really like it, and it feels really good.
At the climbing or at the falling?
At the climbing and the falling, and both of it. It's still a hassle. So the story is a little bit about how climbing is a struggle, but it's really nice as well.
And do you also have like those techniques that you learn how to fall well?
Yeah, you really have to. I tore the ligaments, I think is the right word, in my ankle once after falling. This has been 2 years ago. So after that, I did a lot of fall practicing. Yeah,
just to learn how to fall.
Yeah, so I don't get injured again. Yeah.
And what got you into that?
Friends of mine, they climbed already. So they were like, come on, you gotta join us. And I was really not one for sport at all. I never did, or I used to do a lot of sport when I was younger, then nothing for a long time. And we joined, and I hated it the first time. I really hated it. I'm afraid of heights. It was the worst thing. It was terrible. But I stuck with it. And now I've been doing it for 3 years almost. So that is really good.
Someone who's scared of heights and
it's really good to get over it. I'm still really afraid of, like, if you climb on the really high walls, they're 12 meters. I always say feet, but it's meters. It's terrifying.
Still with no rope?
No, those you do with ropes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, luckily you do with ropes, because otherwise you'll die, because there's no mats.
Then you die. Yeah. Even with the mats, I mean...
there's no reason. No, so you're stuck on a rope, but that's still... I'm really terrified of that still.
It's curious, because I don't know if you ever tried virtual reality.
No.
But there is a game that we have a virtual reality set, and there is a game that's climbing. And it's really cool, because at first, before I tried it, I never realized how real it can be. Because
Yes.
I saw people screaming with the goggles.
Yeah.
And I'm, why are they screaming? They know it's not real. And then I put the goggles like, oh my god. And there's a climbing game that is super cool. And you actually feel like strained at the end of the levels because you're holding on so tight to what you're seeing with a controller. It's such a cool game. You can try it out. Maybe.
Oh, cool. Nice.
So, yeah, I had no idea that I did that, so it was a good addition. And now, I need to ask you, and this is the question that is going to be, like, the question, not the last question per se, but the question that I want to ask everyone. Do you have a favorite book, and or a book that you would recommend right now, and why? Like, if you have both, if you have, like, one favorite book, like, or a book that you like, or would recommend more to people that you've read many years ago, I would still like you to say which one it is, but I also would like you to recommend a book that you read more recently, even if it's not a new book or a very recent book.
I can recommend you books forever, so I'm gonna be very, very. No, my favorite book that I read this year is Piranesi from Susanna Clarke. It's just her previous novel was Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. It's a really big book on English magic filled with footnotes. I love footnotes.
Wow.
But this one is her first book in 14 years, and it's amazing. She creates this world filled with rooms, big hallways that are infinite, and there's one character who lives there, and he just wanders those halls, and she just describes them in perfect detail. I always describe it as House of Leaves, which is a really scary horror novel about also infinite hallways, but then really nice. It's like the nice cousin of House of Leaves.
I don't know why, but it's reminding me a bit of The Starless Sea from Erin Morgenstern.
It's very similar in writing styles. They are very similar authors, so definitely if you like that one, you will like this one.
Okay, and that was like the most recent.
Yeah, that one was really. I read that one I think a couple months ago. It came out earlier last year or earlier this year. No, September it came out. Yeah, so it was really recent. So definitely one of my favorite novels already, and I loved it.
Wow.
Yeah.
And the 10 Doors of January, have you read that?
Yeah, also loved it.
Of that a bit,
yeah,
right?
yeah, also great.
I haven't yet.
Oh,
but,
it's great as well. Her writing is really, really good as well. Yeah, great.
And do you have like a favorite? Or?
An all-time favorite is, I think, when we were talking about Erin Morgenstern, I think The Night Circus is one of my all-time favorite novels. It's just, it's just, her writing is magical. I love it.
I wouldn't say it is like my favorite, but it's definitely, I have like a top 5 that everybody's always like, you have a top 5? Can you actually choose 5? And that one is definitely on my top 5 books as well.
Yeah, I think it's great.
Though, The Starless Sea, I liked the whole environment and the whole, I don't know, the mood that the Starless Sea puts in your head. But then I was a bit frustrated with the story. Because I think I need to reread it, which is, I haven't yet because I have so many other things that I want to get to. But I think I'm doing a disfavor to the book by not rereading it, because I think there's a lot I didn't understand and that I missed.
Yeah.
And that's why I was a bit disappointed. It's not fair also to compare or to expect something like The Night Circus. I know, but on the other hand, I was like, there's so much that I didn't get an end to, and then I didn't really understand. I got so confused. Did you feel that at all, or did you really like it?
I really liked it, but I get what you're saying, and I read some other reviews about it where people had the same thing. I read it pretty slowly, so that helped. I really took my time with reading it, but it is really it's a story about stories. And she really slowly unfolds story within story, so you really have to pay attention to it. And I think that if you are really expecting The Night Circus, that just flows. Like, you really don't have to pay attention to... there's not like a puzzle. And The Starless Sea was really more of a puzzle to figure out. So I really like that, actually. But I'm also thinking of rereading it because I'm still not sure I got everything. Yeah. So I definitely want to read it again. And I think that is actually really nice with her books in general, but this one specifically, that they will be great to reread again and again.
It's so beautiful, like the whole description, everything that she includes in the book. And every time I think about that book, because I have a tendency to attribute seasons to the book, and for me that is winter, and I think it's because of the bar scene. But the
yes.
whole book has that coziness feeling
Yeah.
of just like being happy because you're with friends, going out on a bar in a cold winter night. Just stayed with me throughout the whole book, and I can't just get rid of it. It's there.
Yes.
But on the other hand, it's like if people ask me, tell me the story, I was like, I don't know.
Oh, I can't tell you. No. There's many stories. I can tell you about all the small stories, but I can't tell you the one big story yet. No.
It's just it was very confusing, and I think that's why I got a bit. I wouldn't really even call it disappointment. It wasn't really disappointment, but I really got like, oh, I didn't understand.
Yeah.
Like, am I that stupid?
No.
I know it's not, because this happens with a lot of books, but I'm like, I feel so bad.
It's definitely one that you really need to read a little bit more slowly, and probably twice. I read just the paper book, and I'm gonna do the audiobook again next year, I think.
Yeah.
I often do them both, and that really gives you different experiences again. So that's
I feel
nice.
you memorize also the story better if you then listen to it.
I have the
told
same.
to you.
Yeah.
I had that with the Graveyard Book, which I also love, by Neil Gaiman.
Oh, okay.
But then I listened to a recording of him on YouTube reading the Graveyard Book.
Yeah.
And there were things that, like, now I remember, not from the book, but from the audiobook.
Yeah.
I'm terrible at remembering things as well. And now is really the last question, which is where can people find the book club online? Shut Up and Write, all the things you organize, but also any social media platforms that you'd like to share with those who are listening.
Yes, we have a website which is just called bortodeathbookclub.com, which is very simple. Luckily the name sticks, so people will know how to find it. And we are also under the same name on Instagram, on Twitter, and on Facebook. And for our events, also on Meetup, which is, if you don't want to use Facebook, which I get, we have Meetup, and you can just find us there as well.
Yeah. And anything you want to share, like about your work, for example? Is there any space where, when the stories come out on magazines, etc.?
Nothing yet. So as soon as I know, I will let you know. Unfortunately, nothing is published yet, so that's still a struggle. But if anything will ever get published, I will let you know.
That's cool. Well, thank you so much for your time and for coming to the podcast, and I'll see you on the next book club meeting, I hope.
Thank you for having me. I'll see you then.
Thank you. You can access today's show's notes via my pod page, which you can find along with all of my social media links at linktree/Carina Pereira. I have also created a Linktree for the podcast specifically, which you can find on Linktree/A Story of Sorts. In there, you will also find a link for a special offer for Libro FM. By using the code A Story of Sorts at checkout, you'll get 2 books for the price of 1 when you start a monthly membership. This offer is valid for new Libro FM members in the US and Canada. Libro FM is an audiobook platform which allows you to buy audiobooks directly from an indie bookstore. Check them out. If you have enjoyed this episode, don't forget to leave a review and to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. For regular updates on what I'm reading, follow my Instagram page at A Story of Sorts. I'll be back sometime next week with a bonus episode where I talk about the books I've read in January, and the next interview will be on the 16th of February with Martinique Memes about her debut book, Through the Colors of a Butterfly. I'll talk to you then. Thank you for listening.